we're going to look through, again, the book of Daniel. And I want to make sure what we covered last Sabbath in the message, we have got that understood. Because we're talking, and I'm stating the message for this morning is Babylon, the mother of harlots, on August 30th, 2025. So the title of the message is Babylon, the mother of harlots. And here we're going to be studying the book of Daniel, but we're starting off with Babylon and the king of Babylon. If we go to, and I'm not going to go into the verses there, in Ezekiel chapter 28, Isaiah chapter 14, we got the king of Tyre, and then it tells us who the king of Tyre is. Then it also shows us the king of Babylon and who the king of Babylon is. In both cases, the king of Tyre and the king of Babylon, in its original context, was nobody else but who? Satan. I hope we understand this. So here, when we are talking in terms of Babylon, the mother of harlots, but who was the first king? In the Old Testament, in the book of Ezekiel, if you need for me to turn there, I can go and turn there and show it to you. In the book of Ezekiel and in Isaiah chapter 14, it tells us that the original king of Babylon was nobody else but Satan, Lucifer, when he rebelled, because the Bible clearly shows us that he was the one that was originally being referred to. So what we are looking at in the book of Daniel starts from Daniel chapter 1. In Daniel chapter 1 all the way to Daniel chapter 12 is covering, and we're going to see this, and we have looked at it quite a bit, is that the whole of the book of Daniel is focused on what originated in heaven with Lucifer's rebellion when he went against God, and it goes all the way through, from chapter 1 all the way through chapter 12, and we will see how the kingdom of God is set up. So you start off with this whole great, so-called great controversy between God and Satan. And then it moves from there down to earth. So here when Nebuchadnezzar had this dream, and nobody could what? Explain the dream. So what it is teaching us that the cream of the crop, as far as brains were concerned, as far as intellect were concerned, as far as knowing everything that was to know, because it clearly identifies who these people were. It gives very definitive statements of who these so-called cream of the crop people were. And none of them could explain to the king the dream or even give him the dream. The only person that could do this was Daniel. So it covers that whole dream of Daniel, covers the entire history or the entire event from the time Lucifer rebelled till the time that Jesus Christ is going to set up his kingdom. That dream, in that dream is covered the totality of this whole event. So when we look at Daniel and the book of Daniel, we can say that in the book of Daniel is embedded in the book of Daniel is this whole issue from the time rebellion started till the time that God sets up his kingdom. For that, I'm going to just look at Daniel chapter 2, and I'm going to go to verse 33, okay? In the dream, we're going to cover this in the Sabbath class next week, where we'll have the whole picture showing us the statue. Its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. Okay? Now, verse 34. You watched while a stone was cut out. So this is that whole vision of Daniel from the crown, from the head, all the way down to the feet. The statue shows us exactly what is all involved with the different kingdoms. So here, you watched while a stone was cut out. That is Daniel. You watched while a stone was cut. Nebuchadnezzar in this dream. So what Nebuchadnezzar saw? Nebuchadnezzar, you watched while a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet. So this stone that was cut out without hands, what did it do? It struck the image at its feet of iron and clay. So when it struck that image at the feet of the iron and clay, what ends up happening? And broke them in pieces. Then what happens? Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold. See how it starts from the bottom up? So the whole thing, because this stone that was cut out from the mountain strikes the image right at the feet, and then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed together and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away so that no trace of them was found, and the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Okay? So this stone that was taken out of the mountain, and then this mountain ends up doing what? Fills the whole earth. I'm going now to verse 45. Inasmuch as you saw, Nebuchadnezzar, in the dream, inasmuch as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain and its interpretation is sure. So what is being told here, that this dream of Nebuchadnezzar, this dream is certain, that the interpretation that Daniel is giving is certain, and its interpretation is sure. So what does this tell us? That we better make sure what? That we understand this dream and the significance of this dream the way we should understand it. But then, in the book of Daniel, it also tells us that everything is written there, even though it has application all the way from Lucifer's rebellion in heaven, all the way down to this time here, where what? Where this, I'll read it again. Inasmuch as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will certainly come to pass after this. The dream is certain and its interpretation sure. So what it is telling us here, from the time the great controversy of Lucifer's rebellion originated in heaven until this time, which is what? The close of all this whole problem with Lucifer's rebellion, and all of us that followed through with Lucifer as his agent in doing his work from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil instead of from the tree of life. So here we are stated clearly what is going to be involved. So I want us to look at Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 9. Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 9. In the context of this stone and the mountain. And then it fills the what? The whole earth. So Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 9 reads, They shall not hurt nor destroy in my what? Holy mountain. For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. So here, they shall not hurt nor what? Destroy my what? Holy mountain. So there is what? God's holy mountain. And there is also what? Satan has a mountain. Believe me, that's a fact. So here, this mountain, when the stone is taken out without what? Hands, which means to say that no human being is what? Involved in any way with what happens. The stone itself is what? Jesus Christ. And we'll see. He is the truth. And when we will accept that truth that Jesus Christ gives, when we accept that truth, then what ends up happening? Here it tells it, they shall not hurt nor destroy my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. What is this knowledge? For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord. So, the knowledge of the Lord is what? Jesus Christ, the totality of Jesus Christ's ministry. This knowledge is going to do what? Fill the whole earth. So does that mean to say, when it says it's going to fill the whole earth as the waters cover the sea, so everybody's going to be saved? Come on.
Everybody has to make a choice.
See how important that choice is? Remember, we're discussing this in the Sabbath class, how important that choice is. That here, this truth, God's agape love, God's character, God of non-violence, will cover the whole earth. This message is going to go out to the whole earth. One way or the other, the whole earth will have this message. Okay. Some might not have this message when Jesus said, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end will come. In that statement of Jesus, what he's saying is we might think, oh, we have to go to Fiji. And I'm not saying we shouldn't, or go here, or go there, or go all over the world, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all nations, then the end will come. I believe that when it says the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the glory of God, there'll be people all over the world. And this gospel of the kingdom, what? This gospel of the kingdom, that the stone comes out of this mountain, which is the gospel of the kingdom, the eternal gospel, the truth about God. When this message is going to be preached and taught in all the world as a witness, then the end will come. So there will be people, dear ones, there will be people all over the world that might not know specifically this message. But you know what's going to happen? Even though they might not know the message specifically, and they can belong to all kinds of people on the face of the earth. When it says this gospel will be preached in all the world, if you look at that word, as a witness, the word witness means martyrium, martyrs. So they will be all over the world. This message of God's character, of God's love, might not be exposed in its letter of the law way. But people will be looking at what is going on at the end time. And at the end time, we will see what will fill. No, before I go there, let's finish this. In Ezekiel 28, in reference with the mountain, okay? Ezekiel chapter 28 and verse 14. Talking of Lucifer, you are the anointed cherub who covers. I established you. You were on the holy mountain of God. Where was Lucifer? In the what? Holy mountain of God. So what is this holy mountain of God that we read in Isaiah? They shall not hurt nor destroy in my holy mountain. This is what God is saying. For the air shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. So here, Lucifer, before what? He rebelled. What was he? He was on the holy mountain of God, which means to say Lucifer was in harmony with God's government, with God's system. Because that is what is going to the truth when we learn it, which is the God's kingdom message will cover the whole earth. Am I coming through okay? Any difficulty grasping it? John Mercer, what? Any?
No, it makes
It's okay?
Yes, fine.
Okay, so keep this in mind, okay? So here, Lucifer is what? You were in the holy mountain of God. So when he rebelled, he went against what? The holy mountain of God. So what was the holy mountain of God? Psalm 94:20 tells us, shall the throne of iniquity, which devises evil by law, have any fellowship with God? So what is the throne of iniquity? It's Satan's mountain, Satan's system of governance. The throne of iniquity. He's the king of what? His throne of iniquity. His system. And that is in opposition to God's system, God's government. So here we got this verse. You were on the holy mountain of God. You walked back and forth in the midst of the fiery stone. You were perfect in your ways from the day you were created till iniquity was found in you. So that iniquity that was found in him, and I'm covering again what we looked in the Sabbath class, that iniquity that was found in him was what? By the abundance of your trading. Trading what? What was he trading? His iniquity. By the abundance of your trading iniquity, what ended up happening? When he battled his iniquity, he became full. He was filled with violence within. Now, if you are filled with violence within, if you are full to the brim, can you fill it anymore? You cannot. Which means to say that his system, his iniquity, had nothing else but what? Violence. And today, what is happening in the world? As we are looking at the world, what is happening to the world? All around us, exponentially. Every mind, the geniuses of humanity. And who are the geniuses of humanity? Remember in Babylon? Who were the geniuses of Babylon? All those people that were identified as the cream of the crop intellectually. Okay? So these are the people with us today. They are geniuses to be able to invent and come up with what they can come up with as far as violence is concerned, and the methods and the weaponry that they are coming up with is beyond anything you could have ever imagined or comprehended. And it is so huge what they are capable of coming up with that if they unleashed one of their so-called genius invention, they can annihilate the whole of us on earth. That's how advanced these guys are. But that is the knowledge from where? From Satan, from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That kind of a knowledge is not given to them. One more passage. I'll close with this, and I want us to go back again now to Daniel. Keeping in mind, I'm going to go to an area now, we have covered it, But in the context of what we have discussed, in the context of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, we're going to see this very important point. And we are going to look at first, I've covered this, but in the context of what we have discussed so far, like I said, that the book of Daniel, from chapter 1 to chapter 12, and the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had, starting with Babylon and going all the way down to the feet of iron and clay. And then the mountain, the stone cut out of the mountain that is going to cover the whole earth. We have seen what is all involved there. So here, and I'm extremely concerned that we grasp the significance of this. Verse 5, and the king appointed for them, this is Daniel's group, and how old were these guys? No more than 18, 19, max might have been 20. And the king appointed for them a daily provision of the king's delicacy and of the wine which he drank, and 3 years of training for them, so that at the end of that time they might serve before the king. Then here in verse 16, thus the steward took away the portion of the delicacies of the wine that they were to drink and gave them vegetables. This is what Daniel and his group wanted. So they did not what? Partake of the king's food. Neither king's wine nor his food. Where did Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon system originate? In heaven. We've looked at Ezekiel chapter 28, we looked at Isaiah chapter 14, and there it clearly tells us that the king was nobody else. The king was of Babylon and of Tyre, and both belonged to the Babylonian government. So the king that was there was not Nebuchadnezzar. Who was the king there that fell, that iniquity was found in him? Was nobody else but Lucifer, who became the devil and Satan. So this whole book of Daniel and the vision, we think, well, look, people will turn around and say, well, look, why did God just start with Babylon? Why didn't he go back and start even before that? And people turn around and say, well, the reason for that is because God's people were there and that's it. I believe that's fine. But there is a deeper understanding that this whole issue commenced, the rebellion commenced in heaven when Lucifer rebelled. That's why the sermon title is Babylon, the Mother of Harlots. That whole system was not of God, of the devil. And that's what Lucifer, Satan introduced. So here we are told, I'll read from verse 15 of Daniel 1. And at the end of 10 days, their features appeared better and fatter in flesh than all the young men who ate the portion of the king's delicacies. Thus the steward took away their portion of the delicacies and the wine that they were to drink and gave them vegetables. Verse 11, so Daniel said to the steward, whom the chief of the eunuch had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days and let them give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. What here is involved again in the Babylonian system, that they what? They did not partake of anything that belonged to this demonic system. They did not eat of Nebuchadnezzar's food or wine. Means to say that only did what? They fed only in the person of Jesus Christ. They ate his flesh and they drank his blood. They did not take part at all in the food and the drink of the Babylonian system. They did not allow themselves to be contaminated with the whole Babylonian belief system. The what? The mother of harlots. The mother, which means to say Lucifer's system was the mother of everything that was evil. And everyone that followed that system were what? The daughters of that system. That's why Jesus said in John 8:44, you are of your what? The father, the devil, because he was a manslayer from the beginning. The whole violence and the whole demonic system. So once again, I'm stating this, that as we're going to move in the study of the book of Daniel, we are going to see how the book of Daniel covers the entire spectrum, from the rebellion in heaven all the way down to the establishment of God's kingdom. Now, to make sure that we do know what is involved in this stone, if you go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and there we have in verse 3, or I'll read from verse 1 of 1 Corinthians 10. Moreover, brethren, I do not want you to be unaware that our fathers were under the cloud, all passed through the sea, all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. All ate the same spiritual food and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. So that rock is that stone that was taken out of God's government, because Satan clearly told us that Lucifer was in the holy mountain of God. So the holy mountain of God represented God's government, God's system. And the stone that came out of God's government, God's system, was nobody else but Jesus Christ. And he is the what? The spiritual food that they all drank, and the spiritual drink. For they drank of the spiritual rock, that was what? Christ Jesus. So we, and this whole passage there in 1 Corinthians applies to us, because it says clearly, all these things happened to them. Now, all these things, the entirety of the Old Testament, but specifically the exodus out of Egypt into the promised land, in verse 11, now all these things happened to them as examples, and they were written for our admonition, upon whom the end of the ages has come. So as we're going to continue in the study of ours in the book of Daniel, we will find that from the time Lucifer rebelled until the stone that is cut out of the mountain of God, which is God's system of governance, is going to what? Fill the whole earth. And the people are going to make their choice, whether they are going to go along with Jesus or they are going to go along with Babylon and the mother of harlots.